Lucerne Grand. This is going to be the first new launch after 11 years that's located near Lakeside MRT. In today's video, I'm actually going to run through with you 3 potential pitfalls that most buyers will be making when they are buying into Lucerne Grand, and how do you actually avoid it. And because Lucerne Grand is located in a very unique position in the sense where it is near MRT, it is a mixed development, and it has lake facing. So how do you actually ensure that you are purchasing correctly without overpaying, especially in a launch that is expected to do very well? And I'm going to break up this into 3 main segments, which is talking about lake facing units, MRT facing units. So without further ado, if you actually enjoy my content so far, would you take a moment to like and subscribe to my channel? At the same time, I also like to invite you to join me in my Telegram community, because this is where I share the latest news as well as some dropout units that you potentially will not be able to find such information online. The number 1 potential pitfall for buyers is thinking that Lucerne Grand is valuable because it is a mixed development. Lucerne Grand will only feature approximately 1,000 square meters of commercial space, which works out to be about 10,000 square feet. Is 10,000 square feet actually big or small? I'm going to show you what are the existing mixed or integrated developments in the market to have an idea on how big the commercial space is. So for perspective, if you are familiar with the Northeast area, Sengkang Grand Mall is actually not a very big mall, with retail space at 10,000 square meters, which works out to be approximately 100,000 square feet. And also, if you are familiar with the East area, Bedok Mall, for reference, is also not a very big mall. It is 20,000 square meters, which in comparison to this is really much smaller for Lucerne Grand. If you are in the west side, Helium Mall is 22,000 square meters, still very much bigger than what Lucerne Grand has. The second potential pitfalls that most buyers in Lucerne Grand will make is overpaying due to hype. If you have seen the performance for Jayden or even J Gateway that happened way earlier, right? Both of these projects are actually very hyped up, where they actually sold more than 80% to 100% during the first day of launch. This is actually a big difference because Garden and Sora, both of these launches, which is located far away from MRT, they actually sold about 20+% during the first day of launch. Lucerne Grand, they have additional advantage because there are lake facing units in the project also. So can you imagine how popular this project will be? And in projects like this that is near MRT, which has historically done very well, right? The thing's biggest concern is overpaying, because take for example Jayden, during the first day of launch, those initial buyers who bought 3-bedder can start from as low as 2,001 per square foot. For 2 bedrooms can start from as low as 2,300 per square foot. But do you know that within that same day, buyers that got a later queue number, they actually paid as high as 2,007 or even 2,800 per square foot for a 2-bedder. The entry price for a 2-bedder in Jayden was $2.2 to $2.3 million. Did you know that with the same amount of budget of $2.1 to even $2.3 million, right, buyers can go to Lake Garden and can get a 1,098 square feet 3-bedroom plus study? And if I look at the floor plan with you, this is a proper kitchen with a WC and a study area, which probably can be converted into a storeroom, and 3 proper size bedrooms. Most importantly, all these units are units that are facing towards the lake, which means you have lake view. So while I'm not saying that Jayden's 2-bedroom, they are a bad buy, but what I'm saying is that during that time, if you are looking to buy in the Jurong area, at that same year, you also have the option to buy a 3-bedroom premium. So if you weigh out the options yourself, you think about it, a 2-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom premium, which one has a bigger chance for you to make a profit? Is it the 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom? This is just a perfect example of why buyers have a very high chance of overpaying. It's because of hype lah. And just imagine you put yourself in the shoes of developers who have already seen projects that have done so well. Would you actually sell low or would you actually sell high, knowing that condos near MRT historically always done better? So now the next question is, in the year of 2026 in Lucerne Grand, how do you actually avoid overpaying for a unit like this? I'm going to break my video into a few parts. It's because for Lucerne Grand, there is 3 different kinds of facing. The first one is actually the lake facing, which is going to be the most premium facing. And of course, we are talking about pool facing and the MRT facing. In terms of pricing, it's quite logical to say that the most expensive units are going to be the lake facing units, and the cheapest ones are definitely going to be the MRT facing units, right? So with that, we are going to look into the lake facing units first. How do you actually buy into a lake facing unit if that is what you want to go for without overpaying? If it's going to be much higher price, is it logical for you to pay more for lake facing units? So I'm going to bring you to this particular project, which is near to Lakeside MRT as well, and this is Lakeville. Now, these 2 transactions, it was purchased during launch and sold within 4 years from the purchase date. There are 2 units we are going to look at. First is Stack 16, which is block view, which over here in comparison to Stack 41 facing Lakeville. So this Stack 16 unit actually purchased at $1.378 million, whereas the lake facing unit actually purchased at $1.55 million, close to $180,000 in terms of the differences of premium paid. We are going to look at does lake facing actually make more sense to buy in the Jurong area? Is there demand for premium facing units like this? So based on floor plans, compared lake facing and non-facing layout, both has utility and both has yard area, got 3 common bedrooms. So not much difference in terms of layout. One is 7th floor and one is 8th floor. Pretty similar in terms of floor level. Sold date, just a few months apart. But take a look at the selling price. Lake facing unit did actually sell much higher than the non-lake facing unit. In fact, it's close to about $80,000. But in terms of profits, the lake facing unit actually did not make as much profit as compared to the non-lake facing unit. Why? Obviously, it's because during the first day of launch, the non-lake facing unit was much cheaper. In fact, in order to buy into a lake facing unit, the premium was 10% difference. So now, if I see it from this context, lake facing unit does not actually mean that it will be more profitable. But I want to bring you to the next example. This is in the East Coast area, which is Seaside Residences. Now, Seaside Residences does not have lake facing, but it has sea facing. So also a waterfront development. I'm going to compare between a non-sea facing and a sea facing to see whether in this scenario, did the sea facing actually make more or the non-sea facing actually make more. Take a look at this. Both of these units actually purchased within the same year, sold within same year. And in fact, just a few months difference in terms of their transacted date. The sea facing unit, in fact, has made more than the non-sea facing unit. And the key reason why this is happening is because of the premium paid. So it's not whether today you are facing lake or sea, you will make more profits. It all actually boils down to the premium that you are paying. Because from the first case study, 10% premium is actually considered very high in the area. Whereas in the other side of the OCR area, 1%, 1.3% premium. Premium low, make more profits because buyers will think, hey, today is just 1.3% difference. I don't mind paying more for a sea-facing unit, right? And that brings me to the next question. So if today you are buying into a lake-facing unit, how much of a premium should you actually pay? But then the next key question comes. If you are considering Lucerne Grand, are you also worried that the MRT noise will bring down the overall prices for the project, which is why I'm also going to bring up a few case studies to share with you whether this is happening or not. So the first one we are going to look at is actually Commonwealth Towers, where we have two different units. One is MRT facing and the other is non-MRT facing. So Commonwealth Towers actually is a very popular project back then and has seen a lot of profitable transactions and 6 unprofitable transactions. So we are trying to understand, did MRT noise actually bring down the prices for Commonwealth Towers? So if you take a look at this one bedroom as comparison, both of these units are actually very similar in terms of sizes, very similar in terms of floor level, purchased and sold during very similar periods of time. The non-MRT facing unit, which is Stack 16, actually saw a profit of $174,000, whereas the MRT facing unit actually saw a higher profit of $197,000. If you look at the purchase price, developers actually sold the MRT facing unit $20,000 cheaper than the non-MRT facing unit, which is why in the resale market, this owner actually enjoyed more profits. So over here, very clear that MRT facing unit does not mean that you will lose money. And even though there's MRT facing unit, it does not mean that you will bring down the overall prices. Actually, did you know that if you're buying into a project like this that has good views, for today, it can be lake facing. Today, it can be sea facing. Today, it can be landed facing. It is actually quite common to see that a good facing unit will tend to bring up the overall prices for a project. So I'm going to show you a few transactions between a premium facing versus a non-premium facing. I'm bringing you all the way to the East Coast area, which is seaside residences. We have the non-sea facing units, which is the landed facing. And right below is actually the sea facing units. Now this unit, sea facing unit, 2 bedroom, 786 square feet, sold at 2520 per square foot. The next transaction, non-sea facing landed view, Stack 12, actually sold at 2004 per square foot. And the next transaction, which reflects the sea facing unit, in September 2025, the same size unit located at the same stack actually sold at $2,600 per square foot, which is higher than what the non-sea facing unit is. But take a look at the last transacted which happened, which is a non-sea facing unit. This unit actually sold at $2,500 per square foot, even though this unit is a lower floor unit as compared to the 21st floor. And take note, these units are actually quite similar in terms of facing. It is clear to see that actually the prices for the non-sea view facing units are actually being pulled up by the sea facing units, because the non-sea facing units will actually play some sort of a catch up in terms of the prices. This is not coincidental, because if I look at the 3 bedroom units, they also follow the same trend. In February 2025, sea facing unit 2,600 per square foot. 1 month later, partial sea view facing unit sold at $2,500 per square foot. In August 2025, the non-sea facing units actually sold at $2,500 plus per square foot. So based on the transactions that were happening between the 2 bedrooms and the 3 bedrooms, we can see a common trend that the good facing units always set a new benchmark price in the project, and as a result, it pushed up the prices for the non-sea view or even the partial sea view units. How does whatever that you're seeing apply to buying correctly without overpaying for Lucerne Grand? Which brings me to the next topic, because we are going to look at what kind of premium does it make sense for you to go for a lake-facing unit, or how much cheaper should you buy for an MRT-facing unit. Either or for all of these facing unit, the most important thing that we want to understand is we cannot overpay for a unit in Lucerne Grand. So how do we actually do that? So in order to determine this, I'm bringing you all the way back to Jurong again, where I'm going to share with you Caspian. So Caspian is actually one of the most well-known projects that is known for MRT track sound. In fact, even if you are walking on the ground at the common facilities, you can hear the MRT going through, and the MRT track noise is actually very loud. Caspian also shares a very similar attribute to what Lucerne Grand has, where Caspian has MRT facing and non-MRT facing unit. Let us look first based on the launch price and the resale price, because this will determine what is the premium that resale buyers will be comfortable in buying for a MRT facing unit versus a non-MRT facing unit. So now, if you look at Caspian's first day of launch, back then, those that are facing towards the MRT has an average per square foot of $614 per square foot, whereas those that are non-MRT facing unit, average was $641 per square foot. The percentage difference, the average was about 4% between an MRT facing and a non-MRT facing unit. Now, if I look at the current resale price, MRT versus non-MRT, the transacted price different by 5.5%. In today's context. Why is it important to know is because when we want to sum up, the most important part that you should look at is not at the launch day prices, because launch day prices is determined by developer. A better way of gauging how much of a premium you should pay should be based on the resale prices, because this shows accurately how the resale market or the consumers are actually gauging what is a fair price to pay for a MRT versus a non-MRT. But in the current resale prices, 5.5% of a premium is a fair price to pay for. If I were to apply this back to Lucerne Grand, if during booking day, you are comparing a MRT facing unit is 6%, 7%, 8%, 9% or 10% cheaper as compared to a non-MRT facing unit, then I would definitely advise you to go for the non-MRT facing units, because the threshold is 5.5%, right? But however, if it's lower than 5%, that means it's 4% or 1% difference, then just go for the non-MRT facing unit, because in the resale market anyway, it will be much easier for you to sell and also more likely able to sell at a much higher price with much higher profits, because the premium that you're entering is low. So just now we compare between MRT versus non-MRT. The next one we're going to compare, the difference is between MRT and lake-facing units. So with lake-facing unit is actually stack 18 over here, and MRT-facing stack 37. So purchase price during launch day was 6.8% difference. But in terms of resale prices, lake-facing versus non-lake-facing, difference in resale market is about 8.6 difference. That means the lake-facing unit was able to sell at 0.6% higher than the resale prices. Likewise, based on what I explained, today a lake facing versus a MRT facing, if the premium for a lake facing unit is higher than 8.6%, then you should be more wary in terms of the price point that you're entering in. Because in the resale market, it might not be acceptable in the whole Jurong area yet. But however, if the premium between the MRT facing versus the lake facing unit is lower than 7 or 8%, then go for the lake facing unit, since in the future when you're selling in the resale market, buyers in the area, they already accepted that the premium that they are going to pay for is going to be around this range of 8 to 9%. If your lake facing premium is so low, definitely in terms of selling, it's going to be much easier. And so just now I've laid out the difference in premium for MRT facing versus a lake facing unit. But however, there's one last facing that I did not cover, which is the pool facing units. So this actually boils down to actual booking day. What is the difference in the price range? If you are not so sure about how do you navigate, how do you make sure that you do not overpay in Lucerne Grand, you can actually reach out to me at 8126-2727. I'll be happy to chat. During booking day, these are the several price points that we must map out first, and I'll be able to advise you. The last thing we want to do to go into booking day into a highly sought after project like Lucerne Grand is to overpay for one and end up paying for something that is very hard to sell in the future. So that is why my video is always out here. I try my best based on whatever that I've seen, I've researched, all the case studies that are laid out to give you the number so that you have clarity. But of course, we know that there's many moving parts during booking day. There's many different pricing strategy that the developers will adopt, and this will determine which kind of choice units I will advise my clients to buy. The last potential pitfall that I can foresee is not planning and not thinking about the exit strategy. In a lot of cases, there are many buyers that often think about, oh, today this is the quantum I can afford. I should enter into the market early. But in a lot of videos that I have actually run through with you, I have always talked about if you are buying into a HDB estate, it is very important for you to think whether the future buyers are able to buy from you. And Lucerne Grand being located in the Jurong area, a heartland area, this is where we have to be a bit more wary in terms of the prices that we are entering. Not because today you can afford, but because the future buyers, are they able to afford? Not able to afford, how are you able to exit with a profit? Which is why I can foresee that some buyers buying out of FOMO might actually fall into this. So the next one we'll talk about is the exit strategy. Are you able to exit when you buy into a project like Lucerne Grand? Now, for context, based on today's point of filming, we actually have an estimation of the unit sizes, which for 2 bedrooms, it ranges from 620 square feet to 710 square feet. For 3 bedrooms, 870 to 1,000 square feet. And for 4 bedrooms, 1140 to 14 square feet. And to give us a better gauge of what is the prices like, because the land price for Lucerne Grand is actually considerably higher than what has been transacted in the overall OCR market. And it is actually one of the first with a much higher land price to launch. So we are going to estimate that the prices could go from $2,004 all the way up to $2,600 per square foot. Okay, saying it like that because I don't know what is the floor plan, I don't know what is the facing. If you want to know my thoughts after laying out the floor plans and price matrix analysis, you do want to subscribe to my channel for my part 2 series. But based on like a general point of view, let's say your Q number is not the best, you end up with units that are about $2,600 per square foot. We are going to see whether in terms of exit strategy, can a HDB upgrader afford it or not? Because in Jurong, it's a HDB estate and of course, there will be a big bulk of buyers who come from HDB as well. We have to look at one thing, that is sales proceeds. And this form of calculation is actually no stranger to you if you have been watching my videos so far. In the Jurong East area, there is no HDB that is brand new. So the closest one that we are going to take is near Corporation Drive. Any HDB owner who used to buy the BTO there probably bought at about $296,000. And in today's resale market price context, the average selling price should be about $650. We are going to work out the estimate sales proceeds they have when they sell their HDB and have plans to buy into Lucerne Grand. Can they afford or not? Now, based on cash proceeds, works out to be about $354,000 because this minus these lah. Averagely, aga is about $150,000, which is quite a norm for HDB owners that are located in the Jurong area. So add together, cash proceeds plus CPF works out to be $504,000. Now, if I were to work out the price estimates based on Lucerne Grand, 170 square feet, which is the smallest 3-bedder, estimate per square foot of $2,600 per square foot, it works out to be $2.262 million. Based on a purchase price of this, the down payment, which includes buyer stamp duty and legal fees, work out to be $651,000. Which we already see that based on the down payment here, an average 4-room flat owner in the Jurong area in Corporation Drive, if without savings, will not be able to afford a 3-bedder in Lucerne Grand. Now, this is based on the purchase price today. And this is important for us to know this because today's context, if you are buying a 3-bedroom, 2.2 to 2.3 million, it is still within what most Singaporeans can comfortably afford, especially if you're looking from an investment standpoint. If I look at in the future, can you imagine if you were to buy to invest this 3-bedroom at $2.3 million, right? You want to sell at a 20% profit. It works out to be about 2.7. If let's say HDB prices don't increase, the buyer here of a 4-room BTO highly likely will not be able to afford your selling price in the future. This could be something that you need to be very careful about. But of course, is it really true that in Lucerne Grand we rely on HDB upgraders? Actually, no, because when we look at the past few case studies, such as Jaden, which was 88% sold during launch day, right? The bulk of the sales actually came from private owners. The prices, even though at $2,800 per square foot, was transacted at $3.9 million. And this is not the only one, but in Lake Garden, the bulk of the buyers actually come from private condos owners as well. So meaning to say that for Lucerne Grand, even though in terms of HDB upgraders, they might not be able to fit into the ability gap, they might not be able to buy, but that does not mean that in Lucerne Grand, it is a no-go because of HDB upgraders. And currently, in terms of the available MOP units, there are not many in the Jurong and in the west side area. But from 2026 to 30, actually, there will be more and more that is upcoming. Back then in 2023, there were only 8,700 MOP units. But moving ahead in 2026 to 30, there are a total of around 18,000 HDB BTOs that are upcoming. So with so many HDB BTOs that are upcoming, also a lot from the Tengah area, demand will definitely go to places like Lucerne Grand, which is also near MRT. And also comes back to this, in terms of unit size, this is where we'll be able to forecast what is roughly the entry price for Lucerne Grand as well. If you want the first information on this project, what is a safe price point to go for, you can reach out to me via my contact number over here. So in short, what is the key takeaway based on Lucerne Grand itself? It is first, cheaper does not mean it is more profitable. Today, buying a MRT facing unit does not mean that it will guarantee profits. The most important thing for you is to know and weigh out what is the difference in the premium. You have to calculate the difference between a premium facing unit versus a MRT facing unit to determine what is the best decision, especially if you are looking at Lucerne Grand from an investment standpoint. So for investment wise, it really is highly dependable based on the units that you are buying into. And if you're looking for investment and you're buying into a wrong unit, it usually will mean that your selling time will be much longer as compared to those units that suits into the price range of what your future buyers can go for. So if you're not so sure on how to actually navigate around this, because this video can get a bit deep, right? You can reach out to me via my contact number. Otherwise, I've come to the end of this video. You do want to subscribe and follow me along for the part 2 of my video series where I'll share with you the price estimates and the floor plan analysis as well. Remember to join me on my Telegram channel and I'll see you in my next video.